I never should have taken that overnight security job at Widow's Point Lighthouse. The locals warned me, but I needed the money, and I've never been one to believe in ghost stories. Now, as I sit huddled in the corner of the lighthouse keeper's quarters, my flashlight flickering and my phone dead, I realize how terribly wrong I was. It started like any normal shift. The property management company had hired me to keep vandals away from the historic lighthouse while they prepared to renovate it into a tourist attraction. The structure had been abandoned for decades after the mysterious disappearance of 3 consecutive lighthouse keepers in the 1920s. The company representative gave me a brief tour in the afternoon sunlight, pointing out the beautiful spiral staircase, the keeper's quarters, and the lantern room at the top. "Just make sure no one breaks in," he said, handing me the keys. "The place has a reputation, so local kids like to sneak in on dares. Nothing to worry about otherwise." He glanced nervously at his watch. "Just make sure you're out by sunrise." The contractors start early. As twilight settled over the coastline, I made my first circuit around the property. The waves crashed rhythmically against the jagged rocks below, sending plumes of salty spray into the air. The wind whistled around the weathered stones of the lighthouse, creating an eerie, almost musical moan. Despite myself, I shivered. Something about the sound seemed almost deliberate. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of salt, mildew, and something else, something coppery and organic that reminded me of raw meat left too long in the sun. I chalked it up to dead seagulls, or maybe fish that had somehow gotten into the building. The floorboards creaked under my weight as I climbed the spiral staircase, my flashlight beam dancing across the peeling paint and cobwebs. When I reached the lantern room, I paused to catch my breath. From here I could see miles of darkness, where the ocean met the night sky. The glass was surprisingly clean, considering how long the lighthouse had been abandoned, almost as if someone had been taking care of it. I ran my fingers along the glass and jerked back immediately. Despite the cool evening air, the glass was warm to the touch, uncomfortably so. I heard a soft tap, tap, tap coming from the stairs behind me. Whirling around, I swept my flashlight beam across the landing. Nothing. Just the wind, I told myself, though I couldn't quite believe it. The sound had been too rhythmic, too precise. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing in the circular room. "Security. If someone's here, you need to leave now." The only answer was the continued tapping, now moving up the stairs toward me. Tap, 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 tap. My heart hammered in my chest as I moved toward the stairwell, determined to catch whoever was playing this prank. As I approached the top of the stairs, the tapping stopped. I descended slowly, one hand on my flashlight, the other on the cold metal railing. Halfway down, I froze. A puddle gleamed wetly on one of the steps. I knelt down, touching it cautiously with my fingertips. It was water, seawater by the smell of it. But how had it gotten this far up in the lighthouse? And why was it warm? I continued down to the keeper's quarters, trying to rationalize what I was experiencing. Old buildings settle. They make noises. The water could have been tracked in during the tour earlier. I was letting my imagination run wild, that's all. But then I saw the logbook. It was sitting open on the desk in the keeper's quarters, its pages yellowed with age. I was certain it hadn't been there during my tour. My hands trembled as I approached it, playing my flashlight over the faded handwriting. October 17th, 1923. They're watching from the water. I can see their pale faces just below the surface. They don't think I notice, but I do. They're waiting for me to join them. October 18th, 1923. The tapping started tonight. It's coming from inside the walls. Tap, 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 like fingernails on stone. They're getting closer. October 19th, 1923. I can hear them breathing outside my door. The sound is wet, like lungs filled with seawater. I don't want to go, but they're so insistent. They say they're lonely down there in the dark. The last entry was a scrawl, barely legible, the ink blotched as if by water droplets. October 20th, 1923. They're here. A cold drop of water splashed onto the page, making me jump. I looked up at the ceiling, expecting to see a leak, but it was dry. Another drop hit my cheek, then another on my hand. It wasn't coming from above. It was coming from the logbook itself, the pages now dark and sodden as seawater welled up from within them. I stumbled back, knocking over the chair. The crash echoed through the lighthouse, followed immediately by a chorus of response. Tap, tap, tap from the walls, the floor, the ceiling, everywhere at once. And underneath it all, a sound like wet breathing, growing louder. The temperature in the room plummeted suddenly. I could see my breath misting in front of my face. The smell of salt and decay intensified, making me gag. And then I saw them. Handprints appearing on the walls, small and delicate, as if pressed from the other side of the plaster. They were the handprints of children, their fingers elongated and webbed. I ran. Up the spiral staircase, taking the steps 2 at a time, the tapping following me, growing more frenzied. I couldn't go outside. The cliff path was treacherous even in daylight. The lantern room was my only option. I burst through the door, slamming it shut behind me, and pressed my back against it. The glass walls of the lantern room gave me a panoramic view of the night. And that's when I saw them, dozens of pale faces in the water below, their eyes reflecting the moonlight as they stared up at the lighthouse, at me. Children and adults, their skin bleached white by the water, their hair floating around their faces like seaweed. The lost ones, the ones who never made it back to shore. A hand pressed against the glass from outside, an impossible height for anyone to reach without climbing gear. Then another hand, and another, the glass fogged with their cold breath as they pressed their faces against it, leaving smears that looked like tears. The door at my back began to vibrate with insistent knocking. Tap, tap, tap. Water started seeping under it, warm and red-tinged in my flashlight beam. The bulb flickered once, twice, and died, plunging me into darkness broken only by the pale moonlight and the ghostly faces outside. I fumbled for my phone, but the screen remained black. In the silence, I could hear whispers now, carried on the salt-laden air. "Join us," they seemed to say. "We're so lonely down here in the dark." The doorknob began to turn slowly. I lunged for it, holding it shut with all my strength, but the metal burned cold against my palm. The door pushed inward just an inch, and seawater began pouring through the gap, soaking my shoes. I abandoned the door and scrambled to the far side of the lantern room, huddling against the glass. Outside, the faces watched me, their expressions a mixture of hunger and pity. The door swung open fully, but the stairwell beyond was no longer there. Instead, I saw only dark water, as if the lighthouse now stood in the middle of the ocean depths. A figure stood silhouetted in the doorway, the last lighthouse keeper, his clothes rotting and dripping, his skin pale and bloated. He extended a hand toward me, water streaming from his sleeve. "Your shift is over," he said, his voice bubbling as if spoken underwater. "Time for the next keeper to take over." And that's where I am now, pressed against the glass, writing this on a scrap of paper I found in my pocket. Outside, the faces continue to watch. Inside, the water keeps rising, now up to my ankles. The keeper waits patiently by the door, his outstretched hand unwavering. I think I hear boats in the distance. Dawn must be approaching. If someone finds this note, know that I didn't believe in ghost stories. I do now, and whatever you do, don't take the night shift at Widow's Point Lighthouse. They're always looking for a new keeper to join them in the dark below. The water's at my knees now, and I'm so cold, so very cold. If that story sent shivers down your spine, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. For more terrifying tales, let me know in the comments what you thought was going to happen to our unfortunate security guard. Was there any escape from Widow's Point? I inherited Blackwood Manor from an uncle I'd never met. The lawyer who contacted me seemed almost apologetic when he handed over the keys, mentioning that the house had been vacant for nearly 30 years. The locals avoid it, he said, not quite meeting my eyes. They say it speaks to people. I laughed it off. A free house was a free house, especially one on 5 acres of woodland property. As a writer struggling to finish my novel, the isolation seemed perfect. The first thing I noticed when I arrived was the silence, not the peaceful quiet of the countryside, but a heavy, expectant silence that pressed against my eardrums like cotton wool. The grand Victorian structure loomed against the evening sky, its windows dark and reflective. The porch steps groaned under my weight as I approached the front door, the sound echoing across the overgrown yard. The key turned with surprising ease in the lock, as if the house had been waiting for me. Inside, the air was stale, but not musty as I'd expected. Instead, it smelled faintly of lavender and wood smoke, as if someone had been there recently. My footsteps echoed on the hardwood floors as I explored the ground level. A spacious living room, a formal dining room, a kitchen with antiquated appliances. A thick layer of dust covered everything, yet somehow the house didn't feel abandoned. It felt awake. That night, I slept on a camping cot in what I assumed had been the master bedroom. The electricity worked surprisingly, but the bulbs cast only a sickly yellow glow that didn't reach the corners of the high-ceilinged room. As I drifted off to sleep, I could have sworn I heard the soft rustle of fabric, like someone adjusting their clothing while standing perfectly still. I woke to whispers, not the ambiguous kind that might be wind through cracks or pipes settling. These were distinct, hushed voices having a conversation just below the threshold of comprehension. I sat up, heart pounding in my chest. The digital clock on my phone showed 3:17 a.m. The whispers stopped abruptly, replaced by that oppressive silence. "Hello?" I called out, immediately feeling foolish. "Is someone there?" The house answered with a long, low creak, as if it were shifting its weight. I told myself it was just an old house being an old house. But as I lay back down, the whispers returned. More urgent now. I strained to make out words. Not right. Should tell. He'll find out anyway. I bolted upright, fumbling for the lamp. Light flooded the room, revealing empty corners and closed doors. The whispering stopped instantly. "Who's there?" I demanded, my voice embarrassingly high. "This isn't funny." "Nothing, just the tick of a clock I hadn't noticed before sitting on the mantel. I could have sworn it hadn't been there when I went to sleep." I didn't sleep again that night. In the harsh light of morning, I convinced myself I'd been dreaming, that the stress of the move and the novelty of the house had played tricks on my mind. I spent the day cleaning, wiping away decades of dust and neglect. The house seemed almost grateful, the air becoming lighter, the rooms brighter. It was while cleaning the study that I found the first journal. It was hidden in a secret compartment in the desk, its leather cover cracked with age. The handwriting inside belonged to my uncle, Edward Blackwood. November 3rd, 1982. The house is changing. I know how that sounds, but there's no other explanation. Rooms that were empty yesterday contain furniture today. Doors that led to closets now open onto hallways that shouldn't exist. And the whispers. God, the whispers never stop now. I felt a chill run down my spine as I continued reading. November 10th, 1982. I've mapped the changes. The house expands at night between 3 a.m. and dawn. New rooms appear, filled with belongings that aren't mine, but somehow feel familiar. Today, I found a nursery complete with a rocking cradle. The whispers were loudest there. They're trying to tell me something, but I'm afraid to listen too closely. December 25th, 1982. Christmas alone in this nightmare. The house added an entire wing last night. The new rooms are from different time periods. One Victorian parlor, one 1920s smoking room, one that looks straight out of the 1970s. Each contains photographs of people who look like me, but aren't me. Family I never knew I had. Versions of myself from other lives. I'm losing my grip on reality. The final entry was dated January 17th, 1983. The handwriting shaky and erratic. They've shown me the truth. This house exists in many times at once. The whispers are my family, past, present, alternate. They want me to join them in the rooms beyond. Tonight I will. If you're reading this, you're one of us too. Listen to the whispers. They'll guide you home. I slammed the journal shut, my hands trembling. This was madness. My uncle had clearly been mentally ill, and the isolation had fed his delusions. That night, I made sure to check every room before going to bed, counting them methodically. 7 rooms on the ground floor, 4 on the second. I even drew a crude map, labeling each space. Then I locked my bedroom door, swallowed a sleeping pill, and collapsed into bed. The whispers woke me at exactly 3:17 a.m. Time now. Show him. He's ready. My bedroom door swung open slowly, though I was certain I'd locked it. Beyond it was not the hallway I'd mapped earlier, but a long corridor lined with doors that glowed faintly around their edges, with warm, inviting light. The whispers came from behind those doors. Dozens of voices now, calling my name. I got out of bed, drawn forward as if by an invisible thread. The floorboards were warm beneath my bare feet, the air scented with lavender and wood smoke and something else, something that smelled like home, though I couldn't have described what that meant. The first door opened at my touch. Inside was a living room decorated in a style from the 1950s. A family sat around a radio, a man who looked eerily like me, a woman with kind eyes and 2 children. They turned as I entered, their faces lighting up with recognition. "You're finally here," the man said, his voice the one I had heard whispering. "We've been waiting so long." I backed away, slamming the door shut. The next room contained a futuristic space, sleek and minimalist. Another version of myself looked up from a strange device, smiling. "Different path, same destination," he said. "The house collects us all eventually." Room after room revealed versions of my life that might have been some joyful, some tragic, all feeling somehow true. In each one, my counterpart invited me to stay, to join the house and exist in all possibilities at once. The final door led to my uncle's study, exactly as I had found it that afternoon, except now my uncle sat at the desk, looking not much older than me. "It's not madness," he said, answering my unspoken fear. "The house exists at the intersection of all possible realities. Time works differently here. Space, too. Those of our bloodline are drawn back to it, generation after generation." "I don't understand," I whispered. "You don't have to," he replied, gesturing to the chair opposite him. "You just have to choose. Stay and experience every life you might have lived, or leave and live just one. But know this, the house has chosen you. It will call you back again and again until you answer." I fled back to my room, but the corridor of doors remained outside. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. Familiar voices, parents I'd never known, children I'd never had, lovers I'd never met, all calling me home. I sit at my desk now, writing this account as the sky outside begins to lighten. The house is still expanding. I can feel it stretching around me like a living thing, adding rooms filled with possibilities. The clock on the mantel still ticks, marking time in a place where time has no meaning. Soon I'll have to choose. The whispers tell me it's almost dawn. They say that once the sun rises, the extra rooms will vanish until the next night, taking with them any occupant who isn't in their original place. But they also whisper that I could stay, that I could exist in every possible version of my life simultaneously. All I have to do is open myself to the house, become part of its impossible architecture. The sun is coming up. I can see its light beginning to creep across the floor. The whispers are becoming desperate now, pleading with me to decide. My uncle's journal sits open beside me, his final words facing up. Listen to the whispers. They'll guide you home. Home. What a strange concept in a house that contains all homes, all lives, all possibilities. I think I hear my name being called from the room at the end of the hall. The one door I didn't open. It sounds like my own voice, but happier. More complete. The light is touching the doorway now. I don't have much time left. I think I'm going to answer. If that tale of dimensional horror kept you on the edge of your seat, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that blur the line between reality and nightmare. Drop a comment letting me know which door you would have opened in the whispering rooms. I read all your comments, and your feedback helps shape future stories. The first rule of hiking Echo Canyon is simple. Never answer if it calls your name. The locals warned me before I set out on the trail, their expressions deadly serious despite how ridiculous it sounded. The canyon mimics more than just sound, the old gas station attendant told me as he marked the trail map. If you hear your name, just keep walking. Don't look back, don't answer, no matter what. I nodded politely, chalking it up to small-town superstition. I'd hiked plenty of canyons before, and I knew how sound could bounce off rock walls in strange ways. Nothing supernatural about acoustic phenomena. The trailhead was deserted when I arrived, unusual for such a scenic location on a perfect autumn day. The canyon walls rose majestically on either side, their red sandstone catching the morning light. I adjusted my backpack, checked my water supply, and set off. The only sound my boots crunching on the gravel path. About 2 miles in, the canyon narrowed dramatically. The walls towered hundreds of feet overhead, cutting off much of the sky. The temperature dropped several degrees, and the silence became profound. No birds called, no insects buzzed. Even the breeze seemed to have died, as if the canyon had inhaled and was holding its breath. That's when I heard it. Hello? My own voice, clear as day, coming from somewhere up ahead. But I hadn't spoken. I froze, remembering the warning. The canyon mimics. I forced myself to keep walking, heart suddenly pounding. Anyone there? Again, my voice with my exact inflection, the same questioning tone I would use. The sound bounced off the walls, making it impossible to locate the source. I walked faster, eyes fixed on the path ahead. The canyon curved gently to the right, revealing more of the same stunning scenery. I'd gone another half-mile when I heard footsteps behind me, a perfect match to my own pace, just slightly out of sync. Don't look back. I repeated the warning to myself, cold sweat beading on my forehead despite the chill air. Wait up, my voice called from behind, friendly and casual. I dropped something. My hand twitched, instinctively wanting to check my pockets. I resisted, gripping the straps of my backpack tighter. The footsteps behind me quickened, catching up. I could feel something now, a presence just over my shoulder, close enough that I should have been able to see its shadow alongside mine. But there was only my shadow stretching long and distorted on the canyon floor. I know you can hear me, my voice said, now right beside my ear, though I still saw nothing when I glanced sideways. The tone had changed subtly, still my voice, but with an undertone I couldn't quite identify. Hunger, maybe, or anticipation. I broke into a jog, then a run. The footsteps matched my pace effortlessly. My breathing came in ragged gasps, more from fear than exertion. You can't outrun me, my voice laughed, the sound surrounding me from all sides now. I am the canyon, and I am you. The path split ahead. The main trail continued straight, while a narrower path wound upward toward the canyon rim. I chose the steeper path, hoping the climb might slow whatever was following me. The loose rocks shifted under my feet as I scrambled upward, sending small avalanches of pebbles down behind me. I heard them hit something solid, though nothing was visible. There was a sharp intake of breath, my breath, and then a sound like stone grating against stone. That wasn't very nice, my voice chided closer than ever. Now I'm going to have to hurry. The quality of the air changed around me. It became dense, almost gelatinous, pushing against my body as I moved. Each step required more effort than the last. I glanced down and saw that my shadow had split in two, one following my movements exactly, the other slightly out of sync, as if belonging to someone walking half a step behind me. The second shadow was growing darker, more defined. I reached a small plateau and risked looking back down the path. The trail below was empty, but the air seemed to shimmer, like heat waves rising from sun-baked asphalt. Within that shimmer, I caught glimpses of a figure, flashes of fabric the same color as my hiking clothes, a backpack identical to mine. "You looked back," my voice said, disappointed. "That makes this harder for both of us." The shimmer consolidated, forming a translucent outline that matched my height and build. As I watched, horrified, it gained definition. Hair the same color as mine, facial features coming into focus like a photograph developing. Within seconds I was staring at myself, but not quite myself. The eyes were wrong, flat and empty, like holes cut into a photograph. And the smile was too wide, stretching literally from ear to ear. "Much better," my doppelganger said, rolling its shoulders as if settling into a new coat. "You have no idea how exhausting it is being just a voice. Being seen is the first step to being real." I turned and ran, abandoning the path completely, scrambling up the rocky slope toward the canyon rim. If I could just get out of the canyon. The warning had only mentioned not answering if it called my name. Nothing about what to do if it actually caught up to me. "The edge won't save you," it called after me. "I'm part of you now." You answered with fear, with recognition. That was enough. The ground grew steeper, the handholds scarcer. My fingers scraped against the rough sandstone, leaving smears of blood. The rim of the canyon seemed impossibly high now, though I'd thought I was close. It was as if the landscape itself was stretching, keeping escape just out of reach. A hand gripped my ankle, a hand identical to mine, down to the small scar across the knuckles from a childhood accident. I kicked frantically, connecting with nothing solid, even though the grip remained firm. "You can't fight your own shadow," my voice whispered now directly inside my head. "Especially when it's learned how to cast you." I was yanked backward, tumbling down the slope in a cloud of dust and loose stones. I came to rest at the bottom, dazed and battered. Standing over me was my perfect double, now completely solid. The only difference between us was the eyes, mine wide with terror, its flat and patient. "Every echo needs a source," it said, crouching beside me. "For so long, I've been just the echo, repeating fragments of those who pass through, but you—" It reached out, pressing one finger to my forehead. The touch was cold as stone. "You're going to let me be the source now." I felt something pulling away from me, not a physical sensation, but a hollowing out, as if my thoughts, memories, and essence were being siphoned through that point of contact. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. In the growing darkness of my consciousness, I understood at last. The canyon didn't just echo sounds, it collected identities, building itself a human shell, one traveler at a time. The thing wearing my face stood up, adjusting my backpack. It looked down at me with something almost like gratitude. "Don't worry," it said, its voice now richer and more confident than mine had ever been. "I'll take good care of your life. No one will ever know the difference." It turned and walked away, following the trail back toward the canyon entrance. Its footsteps faded slowly, leaving me in silence. I tried to move, to call out, but I was becoming insubstantial, fading into the canyon walls. The last thing I felt was the rough texture of sandstone as my awareness spread thin across the ancient rock. And then I was everywhere and nowhere, part of the canyon's endless, hungry silence. Now I wait, as the canyon has always waited, for footsteps, for voices, for my name spoken by someone new. And when you hike through Echo Canyon and hear your name called by a familiar voice, remember, that's not an echo, that's me, learning how to become you. If that story left you checking over your shoulder, don't forget to like and subscribe for more tales that will make you think twice about those strange echoes in lonely places. Leave a comment with your own experience of places that felt wrong. I'd love to hear what unexplainable things you've encountered on your travels.